Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. How far do you have to travel to be in a foreign nation? Well, what do you say, Canada? Mexico? No, not actually. For many residents, it's a matter of a few blocks because technically the tribal lands within the boundaries of the state of Utah are sovereign nations. They are independent governments, independent of the United States government, but working with them. Why would we bring this up? Because it creates a very, very complicated and delicate balance for counties and the state government to interact and work with them cooperatively. That's the subject of our show today as we look at the process and the challenges and the great opportunities that come with working with our tribal neighbors. Let's find out how the relationship is built.
Relations between the United States and the many different Native American tribes have a difficult history, one fraught with both conflict and cooperation, problems, and resolutions. That history continues into today, as new leaders of Native American tribes and new leaders of counties inherit a unique situation that most of us will never have to deal with. That situation is a sovereign nation existing inside another sovereign government, and the question is how those two governments can work together to the benefit of both. To answer this question, we met with Chairwoman Corrina Bow from the Paiute tribe of Utah, who was kind enough to speak with us.
I'm Corrina Bow. I'm the tribal chairwoman for the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah. I represent 5 bands: Cedar and Indian Peak in Iron County, Kanash in Millard County, Casherum in Sevier County, and Chadwick's in Washington County.
So what kind of services do county governments typically provide? Well, we reached out to Commissioner Wade Bitner from Tooele County, who works closely with the Goshute tribe.
We help maintain the roads that go out to that area until it gets on tribal ground, and then they maintain it from there. We have a number of other areas that we work with them on. For example, their waste disposal. We also help them in any other area that they need. We provide dispatch services for the BIA law enforcement. We help them with fire suppression and support. In other words, we just communicate with them regularly, and we try to help each other out.
There are some cases where relations between tribal leaders and county governments have strained, and the interests and needs of the tribe and the county seem mutually exclusive. When these situations occur, it can often be extremely difficult to come to a resolution that both parties are happy with.
Seems like on either side, it doesn't matter. If that relationship isn't there, it's difficult. But in my experience, if we can get together and talk about it, on a regular basis, we can gain the understanding that it takes to settle almost any dispute.
See, we're working on, we're revising our MOUs and our MOAs, but it is the best way to go about it because you both come together, you do a consultation, and then that's the outcome of it, is the MOU or the MOA. The MOU is a memorandum of understanding, and MOA is a memorandum of an agreement.
County governments and tribal leadership have found ways to raise each other up to more than they can be on their own.
We have the housing authority that works in all the different counties, and they're buying locally. So they're bringing business in. We've got high staff, so we're bringing a lot of taxes in too.
The Fish and Wildlife Service wanted to put some hoofed animals out there on the Haystack Mountains. But we determined that there are enough sheep out there that putting bighorns at this time will not be a good thing to do. They have an elk, a group of elk that are out there, deer population, antelope as well. And so by our working together, we were able to solve a problem that helps them be better neighbors to their sheep ranchers, to their livestock producers that will use that area as a winter range or even as a summer range.
Like with anything worth doing, there's going to be some ups and downs when it comes to creating harmony between two government entities trying to do right by their citizens and by each other. We'll find out more about how counties and tribal leaders work together when we join our guest panel. For the county seat, I'm Cameron Porter.
Thanks, Cameron, for setting the groundwork. That'll make for a good conversation when we come back. We'll be joined by representatives from the state and the county. We will be missing Virgil Johnson, the chairman of the Goshute tribe, who's going to join us, but he had a meeting conflict and was unable to join us today. We'll be right back with the county seat.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Beautiful scene, isn't it? The great wide spaces of the wild, wild West. Hi, I'm Chad Booth, host of At Your Leisure. I'm asking you to support the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Their efforts responsibly preserve access to our public lands. If it were not for the Blue Ribbon Coalition and their efforts, you may not have access to millions of acres of land across the West. This is America's playground, and if we don't do anything, we are going to lose it. Join, participate, and donate.
Have you ever wanted to recreate the world around you? Add some excitement, culture, adventure? Well, there's no need to remake the world when that perfect combination already exists. Just remember 4 words. Welcome to Weber County. In Ogden, you'll find everything you're looking for, from the top of Powder Mountain to the restaurants of our revitalized downtown. Ogden, Utah, mountain to metro and everything in between. Visit ogden.com.
The end. Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about sovereign within sovereign, the relationship of counties with tribal governments around the state. And you'd be surprised how many states there are. Joining us for our panel discussion, Anna Boynton, who is the
Tribal Technical Consultant.
Thank you. It was a little alliterative for the Utah Department of Public Safety. Ron Winterton, Commissioner from Duchesne County, a county that is engaged with many of its activities with the Ute tribe. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
So I guess I would like to start with just a general question. Hopefully you can answer this. How many counties are dealing with Indian tribes or tribal nation governments across the state of Utah? Because we hear a lot about, obviously, San Juan County right these days. We hear a lot about Duchesne and Uintah County, but we really don't hear much about the rest. But there are counties. Do you know that number?
There actually, I don't have the number specifically, but and that is really because pretty much every county in one way or another in Utah does need to have a relationship or work with one of the tribes, whether it be a direct tribal relationship with the county or county to county and tribe included. When it comes down to it, we are all neighbors, and whether it's city line, county line, or tribal line, we all need to communicate and work together. So I would really say all counties in Utah are tribal related.
Well, that should get everybody's attention out there in the audience that this is a show that does relate to you.
Yes,
so,
it does.
So let me ask, typically, I think people need to understand how the process works. We kind of covered the relationship in our story about how counties operate as far as, most of it's done by an MOU or some kind of contract when you interface with a county. But what is that process, Ron?
Well, the way we work it is that because the tribes are basically equivalent to the federal government, or what we would also say the state level, that's who they would prefer to deal with, because then they're talking on the same level of government. When it comes to counties, then we're one step down from that. And so we do mutual understanding agreements with them, how we conduct business with them. and this relates to whether it's EMS services, fire related, law enforcement, prosecution, just how you get along with neighbors. You know, they say good fences make good neighbors, and so if you have a good working relationship, you have this down protocol on how you're going to proceed, so that everybody down to our law enforcement officers, how do they conduct business, because the relationship is different when it comes to tribes.
Well, let's take a hypothetical. Somebody from the Ute tribe is out on US 40 in the county, they get a speeding ticket. Now, do we treat that like a foreign national, or do we treat that like a state resident? That's a hypothetical.
No, but no, it's not really hypothetical. In our county, and there's not a lot of them. Usually when you see a reservation boundary, it's cut, you know, you cross kind of a state line, you know that you're there. In our county, you can be going one direction and be on what we would call fee land, and then in another half mile you're on trust land, which would be reservation land. And so to stop somebody for that, then we try to turn it over to the tribal police for their prosecution, because then again we're talking about federal laws versus our county or state laws.
Well, that's an interesting thing, Anna. So the simple things that we think are like a county ordinance or a state law, such as going 20 miles over the speed limit, in Duchesne County would be different if they were on tribal lands because of the laws that govern them?
It could be. It could be different even from one tribal land to the next, because it's really important to remember they are, you know, they're sovereign nations, and each can have the laws of their own. And we're so used to having our road laws, you know, pretty much all in sync with one another. It's really important to remember that each is a sovereign nation, and it can have different laws, different rules, and different procedures.
Wow, it looks really complex. We're going to dive into the details of that more when we come back. We'll be right back on the County Seat.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
In a place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure. It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Pick your adventure in Millard County.
Welcome back to the County Seat. Today we are talking about tribal relations with the sovereign tribal nations and the counties as our topic. It becomes obvious to me on something that you just said, Anna, in the last segment, that you say it's different with each tribe. The landscape of services provided might change dramatically from county to county. Is that correct?
It could. I think, you know, I think because we are neighboring communities, there's not necessarily extreme differences, but it could, yeah. What do you say, Ron?
I know our tribe, they offer the same services as us to their members, but because of the boundaries, we overlap. And so when it comes to fire, we have to have a relationship with them. Can our people go onto their land and help fight fires? Our tribe doesn't have the structural expertise on fires, and so they have an MOU with the counties to provide services for those. Now, when it comes to law enforcement, then our tribe contracts is under the supervision of the BIA. So that's a federal agency, and so that brings in one more entity in which we have to coordinate with so that all these things work smoothly. We have victims advocate. We provide services in our county. The tribe provides those, and so our people work with theirs so that overlap, it's smooth.
Does it ever create confusion when there are parallel service? If somebody from the tribe can go to victim services for the county or for the tribe?
Well, it could be.
I think, it could be, and I think an important part there would be to interact with the tribes and ask that question, because it could vary from tribe to tribe, as far as how much knowledge is shared, how much information from the county has been shared. The size of the tribe membership and how many are residing on the tribal lands could contribute to that. It's one thing that I have learned in working for Department of Public Safety with Division of Emergency Management is that even in regards to preparing for disasters, fires like you mentioned, it's really important to meet before the fact, create the relationships and communications services available in regular meetings. I coordinate the Utah Tribal Emergency Response Committee meetings, and I meet with the tribal emergency managers quarterly to try to keep communication going, because I think there could be confusions, with different members and what services are available from the county and from the tribe at times, but the communication really helps.
Now, in our interviews for the story, it came up that there are different federal categories for tribes. Some of them are a certain type of tribe, and there are others. And in some, there are law enforcement components that are a tribal function of the tribal councils, and in others there aren't. Can you shed any light on that at all?
I don't have a lot of experience and knowledge other than in regards to, like you mentioned, the BIA services. Different tribes do have a different amount of service that's received from the BIA. Some have barely any, maybe a couple of hours, per week, so to speak. Somebody passing through. Others have it all the time, and you may know about that.
We meet monthly with our people to make sure that it's seamless and that we have the coordination. I think that Anna's right there in that it does vary from tribe to tribe. Some are more self-sufficient than others. And the way I look at it is I'm a commissioner for all of the residents in my county, whether they be tribal or non-tribal. And so we try as a commission to share that with our employees so that there is no difference there. I mean, if they come in for services, we help them. And if we can coordinate with the tribe to make sure that we're not overlapping those services, or they're not just playing one side against the other, that we have those communications so that they don't, to us there's no difference.
So basically at the county level, Ron, you do everything by agreement with the tribe.
Yeah, we try to.
So pretty much everything that you set out to do is on an MOU. The nature of the laws that govern you are very stodgy, shall we say. I mean, it takes a long time to get a legislature or Congress to do anything that changes the laws under which you operate. Does that present a challenge with the tribes?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we have the Department of Justice, you have the BIA that you work with, Department of Interior. Each one of these federal agencies have a certain responsibility for the tribes, and then the tribe has its own set of government, and so the tribal council makes the laws for the tribe, and for us, we have to look to the state or federals, and so it's a long process in getting anything really accomplished. And so by working directly with the business committee, you're able to come up with those MOUs to shorten the time frame of the red tape.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to add to that in regards to where the state is at, because it's very similar, but the memorandums of understanding, the governor has one for state departments, and that's actually where my responsibilities come in as the tribal technical consultant. Each state department is required in this MOU, the memorandum of understanding, to provide a person to communicate with the tribes so that state department communications can be more available. So what we try to do at public safety is communicate with the tribes as well as the counties. And you know, that's our elements as far as what we're able to help with in communications.
I can see that there might be a little bit of a challenge that would develop, because if a tribal council goes through election or a quick change with so few people making all the legal decisions, that you might run into a changing playing field rather regularly that could slow the process up. Does that happen?
It does, and probably too many times. Every elected official is subject to a recall, but you seem in tribal government, since they're usually smaller memberships than that, they're really close to their people, and so when they're not in harmony with their people, then they recall them. And so we've seen it in our own case, in which they'll have a recall election, and half of the tribal council can change. And consistency is really good, because as you get to know the people and that, then you establish a trust with them. And if that's turning over all the time, then you have to back up and start over establishing that communication and trust. And so for a county commissioner, hopefully, you know, in the 4 years that we're in, we have some establishment of a relationship with them, and the longer the better.
I would agree, yeah, definitely.
Well, that leads me to the next question, but we really actually don't have time for it in this segment, so we will come back on the county seat. We'll ask our follow-up questions and wrap up with a summary. You're watching the county seat here on ABC4. Good for Utah.
ATV? Check. Four-wheel driving? Check. Bouldering? Check. Mountain biking? Check. Hiking? Check. River rafting? Check. Adventure is about more than just crossing activities off of a list, but hey, if you can find a place that gives you everything you're looking for, all the better. In Emery County, you'll find the San Rafael swell, trails, lakes, and the small-town hospitality you're looking for. San Rafael Country, in the heart of Utah. Visit us and check something off your list.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
The weekends just never feel like they're long enough. By the time you get to a destination, you're worn out and you may need a vacation to recover from your last vacation. The solution is closer than you think, and that's just what you need. You can find the desert at Little Sahara, the cool refreshment of Yuba Lake, escape to the green of the forest on the Nebo Loop. Make your escape to Juab County. It'll change your family forever. What do you picture when you hear Rich County, Utah? Bear Lake adventure, snowmobile action, pristine skiing, spectacular solitude. Well, if that isn't what first came to mind, then you just don't know Rich County. The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge, snowmobiling Monte Cristo, ice fishing Bear Lake, skiing the backcountry, fishing at the Cisco Disco. Come and find out what you never knew you were missing. Rich County, Utah.
Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking about relationships between counties and the native tribes here in Utah. You said something, Ann, at the end of last segment that triggered a question. Or actually it was you, Ron, that said it, that you have 4 years to develop trust. that almost seems like a key element in developing or working with the counties, is that there seems to be inherently a certain amount of distrust between the populations that maybe is cultural and goes back decades. Is that the most important thing to develop?
I would say that's the key place to start, yes. Develop that and build a trust relationship.
I mean, I grew up on the reservation, and I have very good friends that are tribal members, and to go and to participate in their powwows or the events that they have on the reservation helps you to understand their culture, and we don't want to lose that. You find that even today that a lot of them are losing the language, their native language, and that's sad to see, but the younger ones are just speaking English, and that would be sad to think that we wouldn't have that any longer in their culture.
So it sounds like the cultures are very different, but mutually should be appreciated. Obviously, with media and everything, they get just bombarded with our culture, but we don't really have an opportunity to see tribal culture. And I'm sure that they're very different from tribe to tribe, just looking at the ceremonial clothes that differ from tribe to tribe. How does one get engaged in understanding them better?
I would say be available, be in touch with the community and some of the events that take place. One event that I would really encourage people to participate with and just take the time to go to is the annual Governor's Native American Summit. And it's hosted by Division of Indian Affairs, and there are breakout sessions provided. It's a great place to learn about the history, the culture, and moving together, and it's open to the public. It's going to be held August 8th and 9th at UVU, Utah Valley University, and you can find information in regards to it at heritage.utah.gov, or maybe your show could provide the details as well.
Sure. You just go to our website and you look at it, and we'll be able to find any final thoughts, anything we missed today that you feel we should talk about.
Well, I think that everybody needs to experience a different culture. And in Utah, we have a lot of native tribes, and I think that it would be good to get out and just like the national parks, let's get out and enjoy the reservations and be respectful of their land and also taking what they have to offer us.
All right, very good.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in the panel. We would like to thank you, our audience, for joining us every single week here on the county seat. This dialogue is important. As I say every week, that local government is where your life happens. Be involved in the solution. Be involved in your community as well, and I recommend going to that tribal summit. I'm going to try and make it. So be sure to share this with your friend, and we will look for you next week on the county seat. If you'd like to share this video with your friends, well, you do that right here. If you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you do that over here. If you'd like to interact with us on the county seat, that happens over here. If you want to watch the next episode of the county seat, you can catch it Saturday night at 11 or Sunday morning at 8:30 on ABC4 Good for Utah.